Hello, Otafest podcast listeners. Welcome back to our newest episode. I'm Jay, and I'm here with Nancy and Angelo.
Angelo!
It's us.
That bald asshole?
I like Angelo, excuse you.
Oh, okay, I take it back.
Yeah, no one gets to bully me. Wait,
I wasn't bullying you, I was bullying me. You're not bald.
that's not what I meant to say. You're bullying me by bullying yourself.
Jay out here taking
You're
the
depreciating
bald.
our friendship. Nobody gets to beat up on my friends. So I'll have to beat up on the person who beats up my friends.
Even if it's your friends.
Which means I'm beating you. Which means that I'll have to beat up on me. And with that, some news and announcements. Otafest Weekend Passes are now $60 Canadian. Get yours at otafest.st/tickets. Technically, it's otafest/tickets, but it's otafe.st/tickets.
I love URLs that are like that. It's called URL hacking, where you get the TLD to be part of the word.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, the .st domain name is handled really poorly.
Oh.
Honestly,
That's not where I thought this was going.
If you ever have the chance to go with a really cool domain name that ends in .st, don't do it.
Aww.
It's Sao Tome. That sounds like a Japanese thing, but it's not. It's two words, Sao Tome and Principe, which is an island country in the Gulf of Guinea off the western equatorial coast of Central Africa.
Sounds exotic.
Yes.
I have a slight interest in things like that because I used to play a lot of GeoGuessr during the pandemic as a way to virtually travel the world during the pandemic. So one of the tricks that you would use while you're viewing the area you've been plopped down in is look for a business URL.
Oh.
That could be on the side of a vehicle or on a billboard or in a window, because you would typically find a URL. And if it was, for example, like .co.nz, that's New Zealand.
Yeah.
Co.jp is Japan, obviously.
Co.uk is in the UK.
Exactly. So you would know these things. Another easy one is flags.
Yes.
Only the U.S. displays as many flags as they do everywhere.
Oh my God.
So,
It's
Look
true.
at that Polish flag over there. Only
so
the U.S.
true.
would fly that.
yeah.
So I'm not going to sideline us too much because I know we have, a good number of things we want to talk about today. But did you know that there is an entire economy built around Google Maps, like the actual footage that you get when you plop your little straw man down and you can look around and actually see the world in 3D. Originally, that was all provided by like Google. You'd see those Google vehicles going around with all like 18 cameras.
Yeah,
So
I think I know where you're going for.
So originally there was a lot of that. A lot of the content was provided by Google. They fronted the money to be able to provide things like satellite view and then street view, right? At some point, they actually created a whole economy around providing street view content. So now, sometimes when you plop down in the world and you look straight down, you will see a logo that is the source of the content you're looking at right now. Sometimes it's not Google. Sometimes there's so many of them. And it kind of reminds me of how Amazon originally was a store online for books, and then they expanded their repertoire. And then at some point, they started allowing third-party vendors. And Walmart was the same, and Best Buy was the same, and Canadian Tire was the same. And now all of these places, including things like Google Maps, have like a third-party economy. And it's just so strange and wild to me.
But it makes sense because there's two reasons why it makes sense. Number one, locals will inherently know the area better than a paid team of Google Street Viewing travelers working for the company. They will inherit. And the second thing speaks to your, you'll see the credit for the Street View location. That happens more often, not surprisingly, for things like park pathways.
Yes.
And
Bike
museums.
pathways.
There are some interiors in Street View.
Yes, there are some interiors.
Yeah.
But I mean, I totally get it. It's crowdsourcing your content and,
On top of
rewarding
that,
them in
though,
some way. Hmm.
back when Google started this, when was that? Like 2007, maybe earlier, when they started doing Street View.
Definitely around there somewhere.
360-degree cameras weren't really a thing. Like, they had the Google cars because for a while that was the
Yes.
only way to do it. I
Hmm.
remember seeing pictures of like the Google people hiking through the mountains with this giant backpack and a mast out the backpack with a 360 spinning camera on a pole. These days, you can get like a 360-degree camera with a GPS module in it for
Yeah.
like less than $500.
I
And it's
mean,
not even a pound.
the Insta 360s are affordable relatively
Exactly.
compared to what it used to be. So,
Like, it is
absolutely.
cheaper for Google to send one of those to anywhere in the world and just hire someone locally to do it than to fly out one of their people with the equipment.
Very true.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for indulging me in this tangent. Let's maybe head back to where we were supposed to go for this episode.
We can still talk about travel. You still have some travel related interests, shall we say, at this
Yes, I
time.
hear WestJet is very weird.
All right. So, I had a flight booked, and ever since I want to say 2 weeks ago. So, my flight is coming up tomorrow. And since about 2 weeks ago, I have been getting daily emails trying to entice me to upgrade my seat.
Oh, yeah.
Now, considering how prohibitively expensive it was when I first booked my flight, not to mention the booking stuff, but just like emails trying to get you to upgrade to a premium spot. And premium is still one step below business, so you're not shooting up to like top tier lazy boy recliner on a plane, but just
Isn't
premium upgrade.
just the old economy?
Yes.
Premium is 2 seats in a row, and there's a little bit more leg room. You get 3 to 6 inches extra. So there's more like sideways elbow room, and there's a little bit more leg room for you.
Yeah. Nowadays economy is that there's the ultra low, like non-premium economy. That's where they still spit in your drink.
There's peasant
Yeah,
tier.
there's peasant
Yeah.
tier. So we'll talk about that in a second. But okay, so they've been trying to entice me every day with a new email. Hey, upgrade to premium. I looked at, just out of curiosity, I clicked on the link just to see how much is this gonna dip into my wallet just to entertain the idea of premium. Because I look at this in the same way where when you're booking your flight, you have to pay for the privilege to even select a seat, and then you have to select the seat's price on top of that. So I thought for sure it was going to be like you got to pay to be able to even upgrade to premium. And then after that, you have to still pay the price of that premium seat. So I was kind of halfway there. I looked at it. Now, apparently, some time ago, they launched a system where you can put bids on seats. You can put an offer. It's an offer system. You can say, I think this seat is worth $50 to me. And other people can contest it.
Yeah. You can auction off the emergency row. You can
But, like,
auction off those extra precious inches of knee space.
The extra sketchy bit is that you have a slider where you can select how much money you want to bid for this one specific chair on a plane.
Wait, it's a slider? It's not a manual.
It's a slider.
I don't like that.
Oh, that is a programming humor input method.
That's devious.
Here's the funny thing. Because it's a slider, the bottom of the range is fixed. You cannot go lower than a specific given price. You can go as high as you want, but you can't go lower than that price. Now today, when I had to log in and suffer through the check-in process, which was yet another gong show, I found out that just to upgrade to premium is the same as the lowest possible part of that slider.
So it is double the amount, realistically.
Yes. to just buy the fare for a premium seat. Now, not only that, but the slider has like a little color grading system to tell you, to guilt you into bidding more. Because if you put it at the very bottom, it tells you that your bid is very poor. If you put it in the middle, where it's now in the hundreds of dollars, it tells you, oh, this is fair. This is a fair offer. And you're like, come on. You couldn't be more transparent at the game you're trying to play. This is guilting you into putting more money down when you can just wait until check-in and just pay the lowest possible amount.
They have an opportunity here to appeal to the emoji generation. They could take a little circle on that slider, and when it is all the way to the poor end, to the moneyless end of the scale, it could be like a little devil, or like the dude throwing up, or it could be like the sick person. And then as you get closer and closer, it turns into like a little neutral emoji, neutral emotion. And then once you get closer to the top, it's that one with the money coming out of its mouth. Yes.
I feel like you see this every day in a different form, Matt. Whenever you go to a restaurant and then you get the bill and then ask for the tip.
Yes.
Because nowadays, I think you've probably seen them at this point, where those square
terminals.
They used to be just Square readers, but now it's a whole point of sale for Square, where it says like during the tip option, I think the lowest nowadays is like 18% by default, and it's just like good service. But then like 20% was like great service, and then 25 or 30 is like excellent. You know what I mean? Like it's this whole attribute of service quality. But it's one thing to tip at a restaurant after the fact, but it's another to pay extra before you receive the service, not knowing if it's going to be any good.
I tell ya, the only time in recent memory I've actually felt like tipping was when the lady behind the counter reached around to the terminal and hit the no tip button for me.
Wow, very nice.
Wow.
I feel like I was truly blessed that day.
And you walked away not giving them a tip anyway, didn't you?
Of course not.
Wow. That leaves a good impression. That incentivizes me to come back. But okay, so this was just the thing I noticed approaching check-in. This is between me booking the flight and actually checking in. So when I booked this flight, so when you look for your dates, it's like, okay, starting from 180, you're like, oh, okay, 180. 180 is now their new ultra low fare, where you're not even allowed to carry on.
Yeah, no, you're basically told to just pound sand.
Yeah.
Wear the clothes on your back.
And also on top of the fact that you're not allowed a carry-on anymore, you're also going to be penalized for choosing the ultra-low fare if you decide at a later date that you actually do need a checked bag. Your checked bag fare is now more expensive because you chose the lower tier.
Nancy, this might sound weird, but hear me out. Bring a backpack anyway. A reasonably sized backpack. And then put it under your shirt and tell them you're pregnant.
I don't know if that would work.
You have to do this after you get through security, obviously.
One of the other things about premium, that when they were trying to be like, oh, this is why you want to upgrade to premium. Premium gets first access to the overhead cabins, so they can just stuff it full. They get first pick.
Oh my god, this is a problem that they made themselves by charging for all checked bags.
Oh, true.
They're now being like, our cargo hold is empty because nobody wants to pay extra for their suitcase. So everybody brought carry-on, but there's not enough room for all the carry-on. So now we have to check their carry-on for free, or we give them dibs for their carry-on headspace. Oh god. It's so infuriating.
Yeah. And then the check-in process. When I unfortunately missed my check-in right at 24 hours before my flight, and so I was an hour late, a whole hour late. So I log in, and holy cow, I timed it, 90 seconds between page loads.
I can tell you exactly why. because in that first hour to 2 hours, that is when everybody on the flight is trying to get in, check in, and book their seats. If you waited until like 6 hours before your flight, well, you wouldn't be able to choose a very nice seat at all. Or you'd get assigned one of the worst seats in the plane, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have gone with only 89 seconds between page loads
Wow.
instead of 90. You would have saved so much time.
So much time. I mean, it's not even just my flight, right? They have flights all the time, all throughout the day. This is
True.
just a constant trickle of people who are trying to just check in for their flight.
Unbeknownst to us, the ultra low fare, the ultra basic fare, the check-in servers are running on Pentium 2s.
Oh, ow. Oh, that digs deep into my heart. A Pentium 2 was my very first computer, Angelo. I was
they were
but a
so
wee
good.
bab. Oh my gosh.
I had a
That
Pentium
hurts.
2. I had one of the nice slot loading Pentium 2s in college when nobody had any business running anything with the Pentium 2. It was my web server. It downloaded anime for me.
I mean, yeah.
Hell yeah.
What else are you going to do with a server?
It was great.
Hmm.
Inconsequential question of preference. Which seat do you like on an airplane?
Window.
Makes sense. Yeah.
What seat do you like, Jay?
Window seat is objectively the best.
No, I think it's aisle.
Why? Why is that?
You inherently get access to everything else. You get better access to your check-on if you if you need anything from your overhead. Sometimes you do because you don't want to stuff
Fair.
everything into your personal bag. You get
Fair.
easier access to anything that the stewards are handing out. You can go to the bathroom easily. You kind of get more foot room.
Kind of.
I don't like the aisle seat because as a larger person, my arm, my leg, they stick out into the aisle, and with how frequently the stewards are coming by, you're like constantly like tucking in. Especially if they're bringing the cart with them, it's like, okay, you better tuck in your arm or it's getting guillotined off.
I remember that being a problem because I once took a flight with a very tall friend, and Angelo is also very tall. But he sat next to me, and he thought, "Oh, great! I'm in the aisle. I can stretch out just a little bit for my poor cramped legs." And no, he basically didn't, because there was constantly a cart coming up and down. There were constantly people walking up and down. Sometimes kids would trip over his feet. Like no, you
yeah.
you can't actually use the aisle for extra space. You sort of get a little bit of space for like your knee.
Now, having that said, I think all of us can agree the middle seat is always the worst.
Agree.
Yeah, I think the middle seat is reserved,
Hard agree.
honestly, for like children. Probably sitting between parents is the best option for that seat.
Okay, that we can agree on. Yeah. So don't check in on Friday the 13th or else you'll get assigned the middle seat.
Gross.
Yep.
What else happens on Friday the 13th?
Well, all sorts of bad, unlucky things.
Such as having to wake up in the morning and live a regular life.
I had to go to work on Friday the 13th, and I haven't emotionally recovered from that.
Oh, yeah. My apologies. My condolences.
Yeah.
Thankfully, nothing really happened to me on Friday the 13th. It was like a super quiet day.
Oh.
And nothing of consequence happened on Friday the 13th for me.
Nancy had
Now,
a statistically average Friday the 13th.
Now, Friday the 27th.
Oh,
Now
wow.
that was a day for not just me, but a whole bunch of people around me. So, a dear friend of mine has been taking care of his vehicle as you know, per standard adult responsibility. You know, he takes it in, gets a really funny noise looked at, takes it to his mechanic. His mechanic calls him back 4 hours later and says, "Hey, so your engine is cracked. Your
Oh, my
engine
God.
is going to fail unless
my
we can
God.
find you either an engine that we like pick out of a different car as a part, and we rebuild the whole thing, or you just sell the car for scrap." Like those are kind of your three options. If we can't find you an engine to just drop in, we have to rebuild the whole thing. If you want to keep it, and if you don't want to keep it, you're selling the whole thing for scrap. So that was fun. That was a fun way to handle the afternoon. But on top of that, he had borrowed his partner's car to get to work. His partner's car now has a flat.
Oh, my lord.
And he now has to go and also borrow a parent's car so that he can drop that one off at Cal Tire to get a nail fixed out of the tire.
I see possibly a common factor, and it's not the vehicle. Your friend is a gremlin.
Possessed by gremlins or followed by gremlins?
Both.
Now vehicle related incidents, speaking of, on that day, as listeners of the podcast know, and as Jay and Angelo also know, we have electric scooters at home. They're fantastic for getting around, within a small radius from home. And one of the things you can do is take them out for lunch. Go meet your coworkers for lunch in a place that is reachable via the scooter.
Okay,
and so,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? So first things first, Sean shows up to lunch with his coworkers and discovers he can't find the bike lock key. Just can't find it. Doesn't know where it is. It's not in his pocket. That's really weird. Hey, can I just stash my my scooter and my stuff in someone's trunk? Because I know some of you drove. Can I just stash it in there? And then I'll just grab it from you after we're done lunch. Cool. Okay. All right. Pretty minor, right? The key's probably at home somewhere. Maybe. And then on the way home, he is on a slight bend in the road. And I say slight bend in the road because it's not even a proper turn. It's just a slight bend in the road.
Okay.
But because it is a bend in the road and certain drivers of certain large vehicles have the tendency to not really care or look when they're coming up around a bend,
People driving white Ram 1500s.
they forced him a little bit too close to the edge of the road, and his little scooter tires, which are not nearly as resilient as bicycle tires, caught in some nasty concrete grooves, and he took a wipeout.
Oh, no.
So, thankfully, injuries aren't too bad. There was actually no bruising and no impact-related injuries. Mostly it's the rolled ankle. So he fell to the right, and the scooter kind of wiped out and swung out from the back towards the left. So he rolled his left foot really, really, really badly. This is the kind of rolled ankle that actually starts developing a slow, huge, dark bruise over days.
Ooh.
Hasn't been
that's
good.
Unlucky.
Has not been a good time. The scooter itself. Okay. So he took a fall. It wasn't too bad, but close enough to home where if he gets home and just, sits down and takes a rest, it'll be okay, right? The scooter just happened to impact the wire that connects to the battery.
Ooh.
Oh, so the battery wire was basically cut.
Not cut. It just won't stay on. So he gets on, he tries to get going again, it goes for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you feel the electronic braking, and then it just turns off. He is on an incline. He now has to hobble home up a hill.
Oh,
And it's a long
no.
hill. It's a long hill. So that wasn't fun. And now the scooter's a little bit busted, and he's got a wicked, painful foot. And he's not able to put any weight on it. Fun stuff. So, completely separate story. This is something we joke around about sometimes on podcast, where our thumbs are probably going to be the first things to experience arthritis one day because of all the video games we've played.
Gaming.
So I have a lovely thermos that I like to use for tea because what it has is an insulated steel compartment, and you kind of put the tea leaves in that and you fill it up with hot water. And then you've got this clear, almost inner sleeve that you can push down, and it filters out all the tea leaves when it's done steeping. And then it seals perfectly, and it keeps it really, really nice and hot. It's great for enjoying tea. I have now reached a point with my thumb and it's not even one of the joints of what you would consider the thumb, but it's the part where the thumb actually connects to right near the wrist.
Oh, I
That
see.
joint. This thermos is just wide enough at the lip where I cannot get a good grip on it and twist to be able to open it anymore.
Oh.
So I
Heck.
brought this tea mug to work. I made myself a lovely, lovely brew of tea, and then I got to enjoy one run of it, and that was it, because I couldn't open it anymore to be able to add more hot water.
No.
And I spent a lot of money on this because it was a really nice thermos.
Oh my god, that's so unlucky. I know
So
that feeling, though.
That was my Friday the 27th.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I was wondering how bad could this Friday the 27th truly have been. That is that is a lot to happen in one day.
Yeah, two completely separate people.
Yes. Yeah, multiple cars blowing up, scooter accidents, and hand implosions.
Have you ever found that I'm not much for superstition per se, but when it comes to luck, I would say my average luck is decent. But when I have bad luck, it does actually seem to come in spurts. Like it'll be a few days or a week and a half of like something of bad luck. And then like before it all sort of evens out again and things are kind of regular, half decent luck. But all the actual bad luck comes basically all at once.
I certainly believe in the entire concept of luck. I absolutely do. But when you get like a huge string of bad luck all at once, I feel like it's one incident that just like worms its way into your brain, and because of that you're not on your A game. And so it just snowballs from there.
I don't feel like that's what I've experienced essentially. It's always like there are usually just unrelated things, but they all just come at the same time. Again, usually it's about the space of a week or 2 weeks at most, and then everything just returns back to normal. Like, and that being said, that means any streak of bad luck I really have is like 2% of the year. You know what I mean? It's not that bad, but I definitely notice when it comes along, and I'm like, I kind of resign myself to the fact that it feels like a wave of it's here, not like literally here right now, but that wave of has appeared. I'll have to endure it, and then after that, it'll pass.
Quite frankly, if your quota is 2% of the year to have bad luck total, life owes you about 2 or 3 decades of uninterrupted prosperity.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. That or the previous several years of your adulthood were so good that it needed to bring the trend line down a bit.
No. That's called childhood, where you didn't have to go to work or pay taxes.
Oh yeah, those were times. Those were good times.
Yeah, and the money flowed
Oh.
whether you worked for it or not.
No, I'm going for life owes you. I'm going
Ah.
that you were paying it ahead of time.
The issue I have with that is now I don't know how long I have to live. What if I never get there? What if life never pays me back?
Oh my god, don't say that. Quick, find something with wood.
Well, that just means you'll have good luck for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah. Good luck from now
Yeah.
until never. Until there is a never.
Imagine wishing on a genie. Hey, could I have good luck for the rest of my life? And he was just like, man, you better use your next 20 minutes well.
That reminds me of the old joke where it's like a guy goes into the doctor for his regular checkup. The doctor gets really concerned and has to go do some lab tests and comes back and he's like, I've got some bad news. You have 5 to live. And he's like, 5 what? Months? Weeks? The doctor's like, 4, 3, 2.
Holy shoot. That is all kinds of awful.
Oh, it is bad. But it's a pretty good joke.
Oh, awful.
I mean,
Awful.
of all the luck that we could be having, it could be worse. It could be worse. We're not getting sued by Nintendo, and I think we can all feel a little bit blessed today because of that. The creators of Pal World can't say the same, though.
No.
No, not even close.
This is a little bit old news at this point, but Pal World, infamously touted as Pokemon with guns. Everybody expected Nintendo to sue them at some point, and everyone was like, why hasn't it happened yet? Well, it has happened.
Finally.
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 Now, if you were to guess why Nintendo was finally going after Pal World, what would you have chosen? What would be the the reason for infringement for this lawsuit.
I mean,
Quite frankly, that love child between Electabuzz and Pikachu that they use as their mascot, I thought it would have been that.
I thought it would have been the character designs. Like we all saw them when Pal World came out and everybody was playing it. I was like, these all look,
Yes.
gee, incredibly familiar to some very famous intellectual property.
They're like the uncanny valley versions.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it wasn't that.
It ain't that.
That is a shock to me.
Nintendo happened to file a patent
For
throwing balls at a mon.
Yes.
oh,
It's the capture mechanic because Palworld so I think their argument is that it's too similar to the Pokeball capture mechanic.
From Pokemon Legends Arceus specifically. And what's really weird, supposedly this patent was granted after Palworld was already released. There's some caveats to that. I need to do a little bit more research, but a portion of that patent was produced after Palworld was already for sale, being played by gamers.
But that being said, I mean, we don't know how long the patent process is. We don't know when they applied versus when it was approved.
It's just,
We also don't know if Palworld ever got a C&D for the existing mechanic.
it's all very weird.
Yeah.
And
I'm not necessarily siding with Nintendo on this, but I would say that other than something like Pikachu or like the actual designs, I would say that they should be very protective of the Pokeball as a trademark because it's in their actual branding.
that's the literal iconography for their games.
Yeah, like it's not Pikachu's face in Pokemon. It's literally a Pokeball in as the O in Pokemon. That's how they sort of posterize
it's their own branding,
logo as a
yeah.
trademark.
it's all very
Yeah.
surprising. But it's weird that Palworld, out of all of the games that they could have gone after, and quite frankly, for the games that could have gone after Nintendo for doing this, it's weird that this is the one that finally happens. Maybe it's partly because Palworld, them and Nintendo are both Japanese companies, but when you look back at,
Same jurisdiction.
what was it, one of the Dragon Quest games or Dragon Warrior games or something? There was an early game where you could capture monsters and train them that predated Pokemon. And a lot of the designs were very similar to Pokemon designs.
But again, that's not why they're going after Palworld. Is
Yeah.
not about the design. Like there's things you
It is
can't.
explicitly about the mechanic of throwing a ball in
Yeah.
the field and
Yeah.
capturing an avatar or something they call it in the patent, and using that avatar to
Yeah.
fight other avatars of things and such. And
I think what's really
ah,
as well, like what I find interesting is how far removed do you have to be? Because a lot of things in this can't be really patentable. Like you can't patent the monster capture and battling mechanic. You cannot patent the overall gameplay mechanics and design. But you can obviously go after the process. But if you went like, famously, there's like Digimon, I guess, where I think Digimon, their monsters hatched
their
from
monsters
eggs
hatched from eggs.
before Pokemon ever,
Oh, yeah.
before they showed Pokemon never hatched
Right.
from eggs. Is that something
yeah. You
patentable?
never really captured them, though. You just befriended them, and they just chilled out with you, right?
I guess.
It's not like you ever released them from some container.
That is true.
Uh,
I don't know. Like, what happens if it's a pyramid instead of a
A pyramid instead of a ball.
like, is that enough to be far enough removed?
maybe if you don't throw it.
I want a Ghostbusters trap. Throw a Ghostbusters trap under a mon and capture them
Proton
that way.
pack them.
You know that would actually probably work because of prior art.
Mm.
You could argue that the original Ghostbusters did it before Pokemon ever did. And because you're not throwing a ball, but rather kicking a box across the floor. And it's really weird because software patents and especially game mechanic patents are some of the most bullshit things available. For example, did you know that until 2015, Namco owned the entire concept of a loading screen minigame?
No.
Yes.
That's
so
terrible.
If you were ever annoyed by really, really long loading times, and you were wondering, man, if only they could give me anything to do. If they gave me a frog in this loading screen where I could press A and the frog would jump, that would just make my day. That would make everything better. But because
that
of
would
Namco,
make the WestJet check-in process better, that's for sure.
Wouldn't it have?
Yeah.
It would have been so good. Now, quite frankly, for almost a decade now, that patent has been expired. But for the last decade, loading screens haven't really been a thing.
Well, they hide loading screens a lot better nowadays. They still exist.
Well, that's the thing. Like, loading screens either don't exist or they're very well hidden. For the most part, this is a non-issue these days.
That's interesting. I've never.
That's true. There's definitely a lot of ways that RPGs hide loading screens now, right?
Yeah.
You're in an elevator, you're opening a door, you're...
God of War, they do it through transition areas where you're like going, your character has to go in between these cliffs, or you're on a boat, you're little in a canoe kind of paddling through, and as you go underneath a bridge, it loads. It's very cinematic.
I really hope that Nintendo loses this lawsuit, just because such a broad patent is really, really weird, and it would put games like Temtem or Cassette Beasts in a really dangerous position. But what has been proven? Do you guys remember how there used to be a patent troll company who owned the patent for a website shopping cart?
Really?
The concept of a shopping cart, as in you click your things, it gets added to a list, and you hit the checkout button. That was patented, and there was a patent troll company who owned it. And it was Newegg specifically who took them down.
Wow. Newegg?
Newegg. That Newegg. The Newegg we wish we still had around.
Yeah.
But what they themselves were saying, it is way, way too hard to fight the patent. Once that patent is issued, it doesn't matter how stupid, how far-reaching, how obviously wrong it is. It is so hard to invalidate or fight that patent. The better thing to do is to fight the infringement.
Can I take us on a little bit of a... I think it's probably a gripe that we would all share, but it's a little bit of a tangent.
Okay.
Something that... I'm going to preface this by, I understand why it has to be like this, and in no way do I want to invalidate the work of the creators and the artists involved. I miss the days where music licensing wasn't as vicious as it is today. I say that in many different ways. The way that, for example, YouTube and Twitch demonetizes creators now for utilizing the content that has licensed music. So obviously if it has a snippet from a movie or music, if you don't have a license to play and use that music yourself, but the content has a license, the creator who is presenting that content is the one who gets dinged and demonetized, or worse, taken off platform. And it also hurts things like future creative projects, such as games being remastered. You cannot, a lot of games you'll never see remastered or not remastered properly because the music licenses have expired, and they're not, and the company that is responsible for the remaster is not willing to fight Sony for all these music licenses, for example, that they might need to recreate the experience.
It's like basically how there's no Grand Theft Auto game that can be
Grand Theft Auto is a big one.
Re-released as it was.
Tony Hawk is a big one.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Need for Speed had a really good soundtrack.
And I think we can all agree that music in all creative media ties in so importantly to the overall experience.
There are still songs on my playlist that I discovered from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Hell yeah, I have that too.
Wow.
like I said, I get it. I do. But I don't have to like it.
It makes, I don't know, my brain goes really weird dark places whenever you mention things like that. Like, what if you could never get your favorite anime series on like physical media anymore because they can't reprint due to the opening and
Yep.
ending themes, like the really banger opening and ending themes. Like, sorry, we
Mm-hmm.
can't relicense those songs. That would be so sad.
Man, at first I was thinking, it's like, would they really negotiate their rights in such a way where they couldn't do that? But then I was thinking, there are anime that use like Western pop songs as their OP or ed. Like Paradise Kiss, I think it was, uses Franz Ferdinand, Do You Want To, for
Oh,
the
wow.
ending, I think.
Paranoid Android was used as the ending theme for, oh, what was the name of that anime series? Oh no,
You
I can't
have
remember.
Duvet for Lane.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, funny thing, speaking of Lane, I think they're doing something new with Serial Experiments Lane, but I can't remember exactly what it was. I very briefly scanned my eyes
If
over
that's true, I'm worried.
It was Ergo Proxy.
Mm,
Ergo Proxy
right.
had Paranoid Android as an end theme.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Ergo Proxy was great.
I liked Ergo Proxy. It was good. It was definitely what started me down the Ghost in the Shell path.
But essentially, the divvying of copyrights, trademarks, licenses, and how they are essentially being weaponized nowadays hurts a lot of content creation. It hurts a lot of distribution channels. We could point even to the event we're helping co-host with the whole reboot rewind thing. Why Otafest
Oh,
is
yeah.
involved at all is because of licensing issues and the fact that we're a film festival and we're wielding our film festival power.
I've been really enjoying Reboot Rewind, by the way. Such a good
Yeah.
watch.
It's so good.
So good.
But I've got some anime that I have to watch as well. The new season is starting up. So I think that's where we have to wrap up this episode.
To the Weeby stations.
To the Weeb
On
Stations!
the next episode of BB Ball Z.
See you next time, everyone.
Take care.